Hey, you, I heard you want to break 50 minutes in a 10K. Well, guess what? I have all the tips, strategies, and workouts you need to break that 50-minute barrier in a 10K. We're going to go over all of it in this video. So let's dive in and let's get you to that sub 50. All right, so the 10K, to be completely honest, is one of the events that I struggle with the most. Maybe it's because I just haven't run enough of them, but the 10K is one thing that I just mentally struggle so much with. But I've run a fair amount of 10Ks in my career. I've had a good amount of success with them. And so here are some of my tips, tricks, and strategies to help you break that 50-minute barrier. But before we dive in too much further, down below, comment your 10K PR. I want to hear where you guys are coming from. I want to see how fast you guys are and what you guys are working towards. So be sure down below to comment that 10K PR. Now, to run a 49:59 or break that 50-minute barrier, your pace per mile is going to be 8:02 and your pace kilometer is going to be 4:59 per kilometer. Now, if you were to run perfectly even splits through that whole 10K, which would be pretty awesome, you're going to go through that 5K in around 24:58, give or take a few seconds here and there. Now, there are three main things to remember as you're training for a 10K, specifically to break that 50-minute barrier. First and foremost, you're going to want to spend a lot of your time running easy. Now, the easy pace, there has a lot of polarity with it, but to run a sub 50 10K, we're going to say in this video that you're not going to run any faster than 9 minutes per mile. Now, realistically, you could go from anywhere from 9 up to 10 to 11 or whatever you need to. But remember, easy pace is conversation pace, meaning when you're running with someone, you could carry a conversation and you're not feeling winded. Now, if you're going to use the metric system, that would be about 6-ish minutes per kilometer. Now, the second kind of workout you're going to want to focus on are what call tempo or threshold workouts. Now, tempo and threshold workouts are roughly around 80% of your race pace, give or take a little bit. But these are workouts that you're going to do to help improve your speed, even though you're not running at 10K race pace. And the third component you're going to want to remember are what are called intervals, which are basically short bouts of exercise at a faster than race pace with a little bit of recovery in between each rep. Now, to run a good interval to break 50 minutes in a 10K, you're going to want to go faster than 7:45 per mile pace or about 4:50 per kilometer pace. So how long should the training block be? Well, that really depends on you as a runner. Now, if you have been running for a long time and you've done tons of 10Ks and you're in shorter race pace or race shape, I should say, you could probably get away with an 8 to 10 week training block. If this is a new distance, like you've only done mile or 2 mile races, or you're running your first 10K, spend a little bit more time there just because your body has to get used to running at that pace. Now, unlike a marathon, you're not dogging marathons, but marathons you could get away with running easy. For most of us. Now, not elites, but most of us running easy. I put that in quotations because marathons are not easy. They are challenging. They're hard things that we do, but we accomplish them because we're runners and more power to us. Woo! So marathons tend to focus on a little bit slower pace that you're using for a long, sustained period of time. Now, think of that and condense it all the way down into a 10K, all that energy. And so what you're going to need to do for 10K is run faster using more energy. Now, what should your weekly calendar look like? Well, I recommend really focusing on a few different things. One, you need your long run. Two, you need to have some speed work to get that time barrier. And three, you need to focus a lot on easy paced workouts. Now, if you were to take your week and put it in a calendar form, it would look something similar to this. Now, I break it down into group A and group B for speed work sessions, and I'm going to talk about what that means in just a second. What I recommend is doing one of those groups, like group A, early on in the week, and doing one of those, like group B, later on in the week, and doing that long run on the weekend. Now, what are in group A workouts? So, group A speed work are things like intervals where you're doing a shorter rep at a faster pace. One of my favorite workouts to do are 8 to 12 by 400 meters with about a minute to 2 minutes recovery in between each 400. Now, to break 50 minutes in the 10K, you're going to want to target 7:45 per mile or about 4:50 per kilometer for each one of those reps. Now, 400 meters, you could probably get away with going a little bit faster, and that's okay. But just remember, 400 meters, it's just 400 meters. You need to run a little bit faster than race pace. Another workout that I recommend is doing something like 6 by 1K with about 2 to 3 minutes recovery in between each one of those 1K repeats. Now, as far as group B goes, this would fall into the tempo or threshold categories. Now, remember, tempo and threshold pace is around 80-ish% of your race pace. So some good workouts to do that would be something like 2 to 3 by 3 kilometers, which I'd recommend for really any distance that you're training for. Because what you're going to do is you're going to warm up. You're going to do 3K at that threshold pace, and then you're going to do a little bit of recovery, 2-3 minutes, and then do another bout of threshold work. Now, a staple amongst all 5K, 10K runners should be the mighty tempo run, just continuous tempo run. Now, I put 20 to 40 minutes. I would err on the side of 20 to 30 minutes. If you're feeling a little bit more aggressive and you really want to get after it and hit hard, you could probably go 40-minute tempo, but that would be a really big run. So my strong recommendation is do at least 20 to 30 is kind of ideal for the 10K. Now, remember the pace work for this is 8:25 to 8:35 per mile, or about 5:15 to 5:20-ish per kilometer. So how should you pace yourself on race day? Well, a lot of that depends on where you're racing and what's going on in the world around you, as well as what's going on inside of you for that matter too. But the big one is, you got to know the course. Now, if you're running a course that's very hilly, your pace is going to fluctuate as you're running the race. If you're running a race that's downhill, kudos to you. You're going to have the ability to go a little bit harder on those downhills. So know the course, know where the turns are, know where the finish is. If there's anything that makes you slow down, make sure you're aware of it. Likewise, if there's anything that speeds you up, make sure you know it too. Now, another major thing to know is weather. If the weather's going to be hot and humid and miserable, like I've run so many races in Florida, you're going to want to adapt. Now, if it's going to be really mild and temperate and really ideal conditions, make sure you know that too, because your body's going to adapt differently. You're also going to need to dress and get ready and prepare for it a little differently too. Another thing to remember is nutrition and hydration. Now, for the 10K, you don't really need to focus on nutrition in race all that much, especially if you're trying to break 50 minutes. But I would say, as far as nutrition goes, focus on nutrition pre-race. Make sure you're eating the things that aren't going to upset your stomach, that you're not going to get cramps for, things that are going to give you the energy and glucose that you need to have the power to run hard. And lastly, another really important thing to remember is recognize how you feel. If you're feeling really crummy and you don't feel good that day, make sure you adapt your pace. Make sure you warm up a little differently. Make sure you're doing all that you need to do to prepare a little bit more cautiously for that race. But the bottom line is you need to train like you race and race like you train. So when you're doing all these workouts, your group A, group B, your long runs, your easy runs, whatever, you're doing all these things, visualize that race, visualize that 10K. If you hit those paces and you make the effort and you do all the things you need to do, you're going to do well on race day. Likewise, when you hit race day and you've prepared well, there's an amazing feeling knowing that you've done everything you've done to get you to that point. And it makes racing so much more fun. So train like you race like you train, and go smash that 15-minute barrier.